Hi, Scott Ford, PGA Newman, and I just want to go over kind of what's in a set of clubs really quick. This is kind of for the beginner class. By the rules, you're allowed to have 14 clubs in your bag. You can't have more than that, but you can have less than that. If you wanted to, you could have 14 drivers or you could have 14 putters. Most people aren't going to do that. My setup, or this setup, is pretty common for most people. And I'll kind of go over them one by one and give you an idea of what you might want to look for. The longest club is the driver, and this is what you're going to use mainly off your tee shots. Theoretically, it should go the farthest. However, it is the hardest to hit, usually for most people, because there's not as much loft on the face. So it's going to have a lot more tendency to get side spin and go way right or way left. It's also the longest club in your bag, so it's going to be the hardest to control. But this is a driver. It's also referred to as a one wood. Okay? And they're only called woods because back in the day, they were made out of wood. Now they're made out of like titanium or metal. And then I have a 3-wood. And your 3-wood, theoretically, is the second longest club in the bag, so it should go the second farthest. Again, though, 3-wood is long, and it's kind of hard to hit, especially just off the grass for most people. I'll do a video on fairway woods, but you'll kind of see why. It's not the easiest club to hit off the turf or the grass, but it is a lot easier to hit off a tee than a driver. So most beginners are better off using a 3-wood or a 5-wood off the tee than they are a driver, because a 3-wood has more loft. It's going to get more backspin, which is going to help it go straighter. So for most beginners, you're going to get more distance and accuracy off the tee with the 3-wood than you are a driver. And you'll also see people swing changes when they get a driver out because they're trying to kill it. So that's a driver and the 3-wood. And one thing you want to notice, and I'll go over the irons, but there's a numbering system for woods and a numbering system for irons. So the lower the number, the lower the ball should go, and the farther the ball should go. The higher the number, the higher the ball should go, and the shorter the ball is going to go. And I'll show you that with the irons for the most. But the driver's a 1-wood. It should go farther than the 3-wood. And you can also figure out which club should go farther by which club, I don't know if this is in the picture, but which club is longer. So the longer the club, the longer it should go, but also, theoretically, the shorter it's going to go, okay? And it'll probably go maybe a little bit lower in ball flight too. So the longer the club, the longer the ball. The shorter the club, the higher it'll go. Okay, so there's different woods. A lot of people have a 1-wood, a driver, a 3-wood. Some people carry 5 woods, 7 woods, 9 woods. Unlike the irons, I'll do the irons real quick. The irons usually come in a set. And I have 4 through 9 iron are my irons. So the 4 iron is going to should go longer and a little lower than the 9, because the 4 is a lower number. Ball's going to go lower. 9, the ball goes higher, and it should go shorter. Again, the 9 iron is shorter than the 4, so the 9 should go less distance, but it should also go higher. Okay, so one difference between the numbering system between the woods and the irons is that irons have even numbers. Woods, you don't see even numbers so much. They do make them, but they're very rare, and most people don't carry them. So you're going to see people with 1-woods, 3-woods, 5-woods, 7-woods, even 9-woods and 11-woods, but you're not going to really see people with 2 woods, 4 woods, 6 woods, 8 woods, and 10 woods. Very rare. If they even they may make them past 4. I haven't seen them in a long time. However, irons, you're going to have, they go sequentially. So you'll have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay. In recent years, they have come out with clubs called hybrids. And what a hybrid is it's a combination between what I just talked about. It's a combination between an iron and a fairway wood or a 3 wood. And the whole reason for that is if you look at my 4-iron, it's fairly skinny and there's not a whole lot to it, and it takes a lot of practice to be consistent with a 4-iron or a 5-iron sometimes. So what manufacturers started doing was making clubs called hybrids. So this is my 3-iron. So I go from a 4-iron to a 3-iron to a 3 wood. Okay, so if that confused you, let me clarify it. What they did was they took clubs, they used the body of a fairway wood, which is bigger, but they kept the loft, the face angle of the irons, which makes longer irons easier to get in the air and to go farther, because once you get past a 5-iron, if you're not practicing a lot and you're trying to hit a 4 and a 3-iron and you're not practicing with them, very hard to hit. However, the hybrids, they move all the mass back into the back of the club. They put extra weight back here, and it really helps getting the ball into the air. So there's not really a need to hit a 3-iron anymore or a 2-iron. Really, you don't even have to hit a 4-iron if you didn't want to. And they do make complete sets that are all hybrid style clubs. I hope that totally made sense. If it didn't, watch it again or email me and I'll redo this whole video because it gets kind of confusing. For the most part, to keep it simple, you just want to remember that a hybrid is basically an iron. It just looks different. They've made it easier to hit. So my set goes 9-iron, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. And then I don't hit a 3-iron anymore. I have 3 hybrid and a 2 hybrid. And that's opening up a whole nother can of worms. But basically what it is, it's the degrees of loft in the face. So you want to keep, and I'll go over that in a second. And then I have my wedges. So I have a pitching wedge. A sand wedge, and a lob wedge. And the only difference between the wedges is the loft. Okay? So each club has a different amount of loft or angle when it sits on the ground, and then that determines how high it's going to go and how far it's going to go. So that's what I was talking about earlier with the 9 is going to go higher and shorter than a 7 because a 9 has more loft. The face is more like this than it is a 7 is more like this, and the length of the club as well. So when you look at a set of irons, there's usually about 4 degrees of difference in loft between each iron. So if you want to look at it this way, my 7-iron has 4 degrees less loft than my 8. So if I set these on the ground, you could see that the 8-iron has more loft than the 7. So that's why the 8's going to go higher and shorter than the 7-iron is. And that's a whole nother thing. But you want to try and keep the 4-degree difference in your set the whole way through. So that's why most people will have sets of irons that are all made by the same company. And then wedges come in different degrees. For the most part, if your club says P, has a letter on it, like a P, it's probably a pitching wedge. If it has an S, it's a sand wedge. If it says L, it's a lob wedge. If it says G, it's probably a gap wedge. Or an A, could be an all wedge. A gap wedge and an all wedge, the exact same thing. And it just has to do with degrees. You can consider, if you wanted to keep everything really super simple, you could consider a pitching wedge, a 10 iron, a gap wedge or an all wedge, an 11 iron, a sand wedge, a 12 iron, and a lob wedge, a 13 iron. And Callaway actually does that with their clubs, and I don't know why other manufacturers don't, because it actually makes it fairly confusing. So you could actually go 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and it would just be that 10 to 13 are wedges instead of irons. It's confusing, I know. And then the last club I have is a putter. And there's all kinds of different styles of putters, but putter is very important. And you're going to want a putter. So besides the putter, you can have 13 other different clubs in your bag, any combination that you want. If you have any questions about what's in the bag or what makes up a set, please email me. That was the simplest way to explain it, and it was still complicated. Basically, the one thing to remember is the longer the club, the farther the ball should go. The shorter the club in length, the shorter the ball should go, and the higher the ball should go. When you practice a lot, you're going to see that your 7 iron goes such and such distance, or your 9 iron goes such and such distance. For me, my 9 iron goes 135, my 7 iron goes 155. So when I'm 135 yards away from the hole, I know I want to use my 9 iron. When I'm 155 yards away from the hole, I want to use my 7 iron. So I've practiced enough to where I know how far each one of my clubs goes, and that's how I dictate what club I use and when. So anyway, let me know if this helped you out. If not, email me with any questions, and I'll see you on the course, and happy practicing.